Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Tobias, and this channel is where true feeling nightmares come to life. The stories you're about to hear sink in quietly, linger in your thoughts, and follow you into the dark long after the lights go out. Before we begin, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new stories every week. Now get comfortable, lower the lights, and let's get right into today's story. I went into my grandpa's farm to earn money for a car. The cornfield didn't want me to leave. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to be careful. Because there are things in the Midwest that don't show up in photos. Things that don't scream or jump out like they do in movies. They're quiet. They're patient. They let you get used to them first. And then they start changing things. Small things. So you don't notice until it's too late to pretend you're imagining it. I went to my grandpa's farm in Kansas the summer before my 16th birthday to earn money for a car. That's the most normal part of this story. Everything after this is the reason I don't drive at night if the moon is full. My grandpa lived outside of town with one blinking caution light and a gas station that sold bait, cigarettes, and hot dogs that rolled on metal wheels all day. The farm was older than my mom, older than grandpa's knees could really handle anymore, and it sat in a pocket of land where the horizon felt too close and too far at the same time. The bus dropped me off at a gravel turnout off a 2-lane road. The heat hit me like an open oven door. The air smelled like sunburnt grass, dust, and something metallic like pennies left out in the rain. Grandpa pulled up in his truck with the same stiff posture he'd always have. Even when he was younger, he didn't get out. He just leaned across the seat and pushed the passenger door open. "You bring work gloves?" he asked. "Yeah, good. We start early." That was his version of hello. The farm appeared slowly, as if the land didn't want it to be seen. First the barn, red but faded, like dried blood. Then the silo. Then the farmhouse with its sagging porch and a wind chime that didn't move because that week there wasn't any wind. But what stuck in my brain like a splinter wasn't the buildings. It was the scarecrows. They weren't the cute fall decor kind you see in stores. These were rough, homemade things. Crossbeams nailed from weathered boards, old clothes stretched tight, stuffed out with straw that poked through seams like pale hair. Their heads were burlap sacks tied with twine. No faces painted on, no button eyes, nothing human, just blank. They stood along the cornfield's edge like sentries. Grandpa had spaced them out with the kind of precision that made me think he'd been doing it for years, but what made my stomach tighten was the direction they faced. Not all of them pointed outwards towards the open land. A few were angled, subtly towards the house, towards the barn, towards the path leading from the field to the back porch, like they weren't meant to scare birds away, like they were meant to watch. I didn't say anything because Grandpa had a way of not hearing questions he didn't like. He parked the truck, got out with a grunt, and handed me with a list he'd written on a yellow notepad. "You do what you can," he said. "We'll see if you're worth paying." I laughed a little, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. The first week was work and sweat and blisters. I carried feed sacks that felt heavier every day. I replaced cracked fence boards. I pulled weeds. I learned which boards on the porch would squeal if you stepped on them wrong and which ones would drop you into spider webs under the house. At night, I ate whatever Grandpa cooked, usually meat and potatoes, and then I showered until the water ran lukewarm and my skin turned pink. The thing about farm showers is that they don't feel private. The house creaks, the pipes knock, the air vents whisper, and the whole time, the window above the tub shows you a slice of the yard, dark grass, the faint outline of the barn, and beyond it, the corn. The first night, I thought I saw someone standing out there. I froze with shampoo in my hair, blinking hard, leaning close to the glass. Nothing. Just the nearest scarecrow near the fence line. It was facing the road, like it should. The next morning, I went out to start chores and I looked, because that's what you do when a thought bites you. You go check. The scarecrow was facing the house. Not dramatically, not turned sideways like someone had grabbed it and spun it around, just angled. Its burlap head tilted slightly upward like it had been looking up into my upstairs window while I slept. I told myself Grandpa must have adjusted it, but Grandpa was drinking coffee at the kitchen table when I came in, like he'd been there for hours. I didn't bring it up. I didn't want to sound like the city kid spooked by a farm decoration. That was my first mistake. I met the twins in town on a Tuesday. Grandpa sent me to the gas station with a list: motor oil, fence staples, 2 packs of batteries. The bike ride into town took me along the edge of the cornfield, where the stalks stood so dense that they looked like a wall. Halfway there, I got that feeling you get when a stranger stares too long. I glanced over my shoulder. The scarecrows were still. Of course they were. I still pedaled faster. At the gas station, 2 kids were sitting on the curb near the air pump. A boy and a girl, maybe my age. Identical enough you didn't need them to tell you they were twins. Same dark hair, same sharp cheekbones, same steady eyes that tracked me like they were measuring me. The boy stood first. "You're on the Harlow place," he said. It wasn't a question. I hesitated. "My grandpa's name is Harlow." The girl nodded slowly like she confirmed something. "You're there for the summer." "How do you?" "Everyone sees the bus," the boy cut in like it was obvious. "What's he paying you?" "50 a week," the boy snorted. "That's robbery." The girl didn't laugh. She stared at my hands, at the dirt under my nails, at the small cuts from wire fencing. Then she looked up and asked very calmly, "Have you counted them yet?" "Counted what?" "The scarecrows," she said. The boy watched me carefully. "Don't lie. You've seen them." My skin prickled. "Yeah, there are 6. The girl's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "6 in daylight," she said. The boy leaned closer. "But you ever see them at night?" I started to laugh. Because what else do you do when someone says something like that? But the sound died in my throat because their faces didn't change. They weren't messing with me. The girl spoke again, quieter. "There's a rumor," she said, "that they move on a full moon." "I think you mean the wind," I said. "No wind this week," the boy replied immediately. The girl nodded. "You never see them move," she continued, "because they don't like being caught. You only see the after." I didn't like the way she said after. I didn't like the way the boy scratched at his wrist like it itched under the skin. "What's your name?" I asked, mostly to steer the conversation somewhere normal. "Eli," the boy said. "June," the girl said. I waited for her to say something else, like "just kidding" or "our parents made it up." She didn't. Instead, she asked, "There's a full moon Friday." My stomach tightened. I hadn't checked the calendar. Eli smiled this time, and it didn't reach his eyes. "You'll hear it if you're awake," he said. "Corn makes a different sound when it's opening." "What does that mean?" I asked. June stood and brushed dust off her shorts. "It means," she said, "don't go out alone." Then they walked away like they'd done me a favor. I watched them disappear down the sidewalk, and something in me wanted to call after them. Something else wanted to get on my bike and ride straight out of Kansas. That night, I tried to ask Grandpa about the scarecrows without asking. You learn how to do that around certain adults. "So, do the birds ever mess with the corn?" I asked casually at dinner. Grandpa chewed slowly. The sound of his fork scraping the plate was too loud. "Not much," he said. "Scarecrows help?" "Yep." "How long have you had them?" His eyes lifted to mine. I felt like I'd stepped on the wrong board on the porch. "A long time," he said. "Do you ever move them around?" His face didn't change, but the room did. It felt smaller, hotter, like the air didn't want to move. "No," Grandpa said. I tried to laugh. "I met some kids in town. They were saying that there's a rumor that they move by themselves." Grandpa set his fork down gently. Too gently. "The town is full of bored mouths," he said. "People talk when they got nothing better." "Yeah," I said quickly, I figured. Grandpa stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "You keep to the yard at night." It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't even a rule. It was a warning disguised as plain advice. I nodded. "Okay." He picked his fork back up like nothing happened, but later when I went upstairs, I realized he'd locked the back door. He never locked the back door. Thursday night, the night before the full moon, was the first time I heard it. I woke up because the house shifted. Not like an earthquake, like a person rolling over in bed, adjusting weight. The floorboards creaked downstairs, then faintly, a sound outside. A slow dragging, like something being pulled across dirt. I lay there staring at the ceiling, heart thumping, telling myself it was Grandpa taking out the trash or checking something. But it didn't sound like boots. It sounded soft, brushy, like dry bristles. I got out of bed, moved to the window, and pushed the curtain aside just enough to peek. The yard was soaked in moonlight. The cornfield was a solid black mass, rose hidden in shadow, and the scarecrow nearest the house wasn't on its post. The post was there, empty. My mouth went dry. I scanned the fence line for a moment. Nothing. Then deeper in the field, the corn rustled. Not wind rustling, a deliberate heavy shifting, like something pushing between stalks, parting them, and then letting them close behind. I stared until my eyes watered, trying to make sense of darkness. Then I saw it. A shape at the edge of the field. Tall, too thin. It stepped forward into a patch of moonlight. The scarecrow, off its post. Standing on the ground, its arms hung straight down, its head, blank burlap, tilted up slowly towards the house, towards my window. I jerked back instinctively, heart punching my ribs. When I looked again, it was gone. The cornfield was still. The post stood empty. I didn't sleep after that. Morning came like nothing happened. And then when I walked into the yard, the scarecrow was back on his post, perfectly placed. But the shirt it wore was different. Grandpa didn't own a shirt like that. I was sure. It was cleaner, less faded, like it belonged to someone younger, like it had been taken recently. I stared at it until my stomach churned. Then I realized something that made my hands go cold. The shirt looked like the one Eli wore. Friday, when I saw Eli and June that afternoon, I told them what I'd seen. Their faces didn't change. June just nodded like I confirmed something she already knew. Eli's eyes brightened in a way that made me uneasy. I told you, he said. I should have lied. I should have told them it was nothing. Instead, I said, if you want to see, come tonight. June studied me. Your grandpa will be asleep? By 10. Eli grinned. Then we'll come at midnight. June added, bring salt. What? Just bring it, she said. They left before I could ask why. That night, I poured salt into a sandwich bag and I told myself I was being ridiculous. And yet I still did it. Midnight came. The full moon looked wrong. Too bright, too white, like a spotlight hung into the sky. Eli and June climbed the fence quietly, bikes hidden behind a shed. Eli had a flashlight, a cheap camera, and a pocket knife. June had a second flashlight and a small jar filled with something dark. What's that? I asked. She held it up to the moonlight. Grave dirt, she said. I laughed once. It sounded thin and nervous. Eli didn't laugh at all. You saw one off its post, he said. That means it's close. Close to what? I asked. Eli lifted the flashlight beam towards the field. Close to feeding, he said. The way he said it made my throat tighten. June touched my arm. Her fingers were cold. We stay together, she whispered. We don't chase. We don't separate. If you hear your name... I'm not hearing my name, I cut in. June's eyes flicked towards the corn. If you hear it, she repeated, like she hadn't heard me. Eli stepped forward into the first row. The corn swallowed him up like water. I followed. June came last, and when she stepped in, she sprinkled a thin line of grave dirt behind us like she was closing a door. And corn at night doesn't feel like plants. It feels like bodies. Stalks brush your arms and shoulders. Leaves scrape your skin. The air is hot and wet and smells like dirt and something sweet that's starting to rot. The flashlight beams cut narrow tunnels through the rows. Everything beyond those tunnels was black. Eli walked in like he'd done this before. Slow, listening, head turned slightly with every sound. June kept glancing behind us like she expected something to follow. I tried to keep my breathing steady. Then I saw the footprints. Bare footprints, deep in the soil between rows. Too long, too narrow, and there were a lot of them. Not in one direction either. Circling, crossing, like something paced back and forth. Eli crouched and pressed two fingers in the print, and then lifted them to his nose. What are you doing? I whispered. He didn't answer. He just stood and kept walking. The farther in we went, the quieter it got. Even our footsteps sounded muffled, like the earth was swallowing noise. Then, just ahead, the corn shifted. A slow push outward like something tall was moving between rows without breaking stalks. June stopped. Did you hear that? I heard the corn, I whispered. No, she said. Listen. We went still. In the silence, there was a faint sound, a dry rubbing, like straw sliding over straw, then a wet sound underneath it, like a tongue on fabric. Eli raised the camera. The corn ahead parted, and something stepped into the flashlight beam. A scarecrow, but not on a post. It stood on the ground between the rows, feet hidden by leaves. Its clothes hung too naturally, like they were being worn. Its burlap head sagged as if it was heavy, as if something inside had weight. Eli whispered, "Don't move." The scarecrow's head twitched, not from wind, a twitch like a muscle, and then its head turned towards us. Slow, deliberate. I felt my bladder tighten. June's flashlight shook. Eli's camera clicked. The scarecrow tilted its head, listening to the sound like it recognized it. Then the corn behind us rustled. Not a breeze, not a small animal, something bigger. Something coming through. June hissed, "We go. Now." Eli took one step back, and the scarecrow took one step forward, not shuffling. Stepping. A clear, weight-bearing step, and the ground under it made a soft, wet press like something barefoot. My mouth went dry. Eli backed up again. The scarecrow mirrored him. June grabbed my wrist so hard it hurt. "Run," she whispered. Then the field answered. Corn all around us shifted at once. Rows bending, leaves scraping, a circle closing. And I realized we weren't looking at one scarecrow. We were looking at one that wanted us to notice. Eli swung his flashlight left. Another scarecrow stood there, not mounted, standing between the stalks like it had always been part of the field. And then another to the right, then one behind. We were surrounded. June whispered something that sounded like a prayer, but not one I recognized. Eli's breathing got fast. "Don't let them touch you," he said. I tried to laugh. I couldn't. Then I saw movement beyond them, something taller than any scarecrow, so tall the corn bowed away from it. It moved without pushing stalks aside like you'd expect. The corn seemed to part willingly like it wanted it through. The flashlight beam landed on it for half a second, and my brain refused to label what I was seeing. It had arms, but too many joints. Legs, but one bent backward like an animal. Its body looked stuffed, round in places, hollow in others, like it was made from sacks tied together, and the surface of it wasn't burlap. It was skin. Not smooth skin, stitched skin, patchwork, different tones, different textures, as if it had been built from pieces of people. Its head was a sack like a scarecrow's, but it bulged and shifted, and for one awful moment, I saw a shape pressed from inside, as if something with a face was trying to breathe through the fabric. June let out a sound between a sob and a gasp. Eli lifted the pocket knife like it was going to help. The tall thing stepped forward. The scarecrows around us leaned in slightly like they were eager. And then the tall thing spoke. Not with a mouth, not with lips, but with a sound that came from inside it, muffled by sack fabric and wetness. It said my name. Perfectly. In my mom's voice. I froze. June slapped my cheek hard. "Don't," she hissed. "Don't answer." My face stung. The tall thing said my name again, this time in Grandpa's voice, then Eli's, and then June's. It was like it was trying them on, like it was tasting what fit. Eli backed up, and his heel caught a root. He stumbled. One of the scarecrows lunged, fast. It grabbed Eli's arms, and I heard skin tear. Not fabric, not straw. Skin. Eli screamed, and the sound echoed strangely, swallowed by corn like it wanted to eat it. June shoved me towards a row. Go. We ran, but the rows weren't straight anymore. I swear they weren't. We turned, and every path looked the same, and the corn scraped us and clawed us, and behind us, I heard that dry rubbing sound growing louder, like dozens of bodies brushing through stalks. Eli screamed again. Then he cut off, like someone stuffed cloth in his mouth. June grabbed my shirt and yanked me hard into a different row. "Don't look back," she panted. I did anyways, because I couldn't help it. And in the moonlight behind us, I saw Eli being dragged into the corn. Not pulled by a scarecrow, not pulled by the tall thing, pulled by the corn itself. Stalks bent around him like arms. Leaves wrapped his legs. And the scarecrows just watched, heads tilted like they were learning. June shoved my face forward. "Run." We burst out of the field near the back fence. The yard felt unreal. Open air, open sky. The corn behind us stilled instantly, like a curtain dropping, like it had never moved. We slammed into the porch, tripping over steps, hammering at the door, and it opened before I could knock. Grandpa stood there in his undershirt, not surprised, not confused, just tired. He looked past me into the field. Then he looked at June. His eyes hardened. You brought her, he said. June didn't answer. Grandpa's gaze shifted to the empty space behind us. Where's the boy? He asked. My throat wouldn't work. June whispered. He's gone. Grandpa exhaled like he'd expected that. And then he said something I will never forget. They always take one when you bring light into it. Well, he made us sit at the kitchen table. He poured coffee like it was morning and not the middle of the night. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. June had blood on her fingers, not hers. Grandpa looked at the salt bag on the table and the grave dirt smeared on June's palm. You kids think you're smart, he said. Think old stories or games. What is it? I demanded. My voice cracked. What was that thing? Grandpa stared into his coffee like he could see something moving into it. This land didn't start as a farm, he said. I waited. June didn't blink. Grandpa continued, before there was corn, before there was grass, there were people. And before there were people, there was hunger. I swallowed. You're not making sense. Grandpa looked up at me. The field wants, he said simply. It's always wanted. And when it doesn't get what it wants, it takes. June whispered, the offering. Grandpa's jaw tightened at the word. You keep it fed, he said to her, accusation in his voice. Your family's been doing this too. June's eyes shone with tears that didn't fall. We don't have a choice. I stared between them. Fed with what? Grandpa didn't answer right away because saying it too loud would make it real. Then he said, people. The room went cold. I don't understand, I whispered. Grandpa leaned forward. You see scarecrows, he said. You think straw, you think wood, but those aren't built to scare birds. He pointed towards the back window. They're built to hold the field, what the field won't let go. June whispered, they're anchors. Grandpa nodded once. Every time the field takes, he said, something gets left behind. A piece, a memory, a voice, a want. Those scarecrows keep it from coming out. My stomach rolled. Then why did they move? Grandpa's eyes flicked towards the moonlight. Because on a full moon, the field remembers it's hungry. Eli didn't come back. The sheriff came to Grandpa's house after sunrise because June's parents called and said that their son was missing. They assumed he was with us. Grandpa lied like it was breathing. He never came here, Grandpa said calmly. Haven't seen that boy in weeks. June sat perfectly still, hands folded, face blank. I tried to speak. June kicked my ankle hard under the table. The sheriff looked at me. You seen him? My tongue felt thick. No, I whispered. The sheriff sighed like he'd already decided. Kids run off, he said. Happens. He left. No search party. No dogs. No helicopters. Because out there, kids disappearing into corn is treated like weather. June left soon after, slipping out without looking at me. Before she went, she paused at the doorway and said quietly, don't come back on a full moon. Then she was gone. I packed that afternoon. Grandpa didn't stop me. He just watched me load my bag onto the truck like he was watching something he'd seen too many times. As we drove towards the bus stop, I looked back at the field. There were more scarecrows than before. Not 6, not 7, 8. One of them wore a short shirt that looked exactly like Eli's. And when the sunlight hit his sleeve, I saw long scratches down the fabric, like finger marks. I didn't tell my mom why I came home early. I told her Grandpa didn't need me. I told her it was too hard. She rolled her eyes and called me lazy. I didn't argue, because how do you tell someone you watched your friend get swallowed by corn? How do you explain that a thing wearing stitched skin spoke your name in your mother's voice? How do you say your grandpa knew and lived with it and paid it like rent? I tried to forget. I really did. But forgetting doesn't work like people think it does. It doesn't delete it, it just buries it. And buried things are still there. 2 months later, on a full moon, I woke up at exactly 3:12 a.m. I don't know why that time matters, but it does. I woke up sweating, heart racing, and my bedroom felt wrong. Too quiet, too still. Then I heard it, a soft dragging outside my window. I lived in the suburbs. There was no corn, no fields, just a tree line behind our fence. I held my breath and leaned towards the blinds. Then I saw something in my yard. Not a person, not a scarecrow, just a tall shape standing very still, head angled towards my window. And even from that distance, I could tell it wasn't looking at the house. It was looking at me. I didn't move, I didn't blink, and after a long moment, the shape turned and walked into the darkness between the trees. The next morning, there was bare footprints in the grass. Long, narrow, pressed deep like something heavy had walked there, leading towards the tree line. And in the mud near the fence, I found a strand of dry corn silk. I'm writing this because last week I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name. Inside was a single paragraph. It was taken from the road outside Grandpa's farm. The house was gone now, tore down, but the field was still there. And at the edge of it stood a line of scarecrows, so many I couldn't count, all facing the camera, all facing the road, all facing whoever took the picture, except one. One was slightly turned away, towards the farmhouse that didn't exist anymore, towards where my old bedroom window used to be, and around its neck, tied with twine, was a scrap of red flannel. Clean, new, like it had been placed there recently. And on the back of the photo in shaky handwriting were 4 words. You still owe us. I don't know who sent it. I don't know how they found my address, but I do know what it means. The field wants, it always has. And the worst part is this. I don't think it stayed in Kansas. I think it learned my name. And if you're reading this and you've never stood near a cornfield under a full moon and felt like the rows were leaning towards you, don't go closer. Don't bring a flashlight. Don't answer if you hear your voice, because sometimes the scarecrows aren't there to scare anything away. Sometimes they're there to keep something in. And sometimes they don't hold. And that's where we'll stop for today. If this story stayed with you, if it followed you a little too closely after it ended, then it did exactly what it was meant to do. If you enjoyed listening, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. New stories are waiting, some already written, and some still finding their way out of the dark. Write a comment if you want to share your thoughts, or if you've experienced something that you still can't explain. Until next time, keep the lights low, keep your doors locked, and try to get some sleep.